All right, folks, we're going to do a quick little recap of episode 8 of season 9 of Alone. I'm just going to kind of go through this episode and talk about some of the more interesting things, or some of the things that I found interesting anyway. And then towards the end, we'll wrap up with like kind of the big concept that I got out of this episode. So to start off, the episode starts with Carrie Lee showing us her black teeth. As a result of her making fruit leather in her cast iron Dutch oven or cast iron pot. So let me back up. So cast iron pots they have like a black coating on the inside when they're seasoned properly. And if you put something acidic in there for very long, like tomatoes or something like that, it'll eat all of that black lining off and it kind of gets into your food. And it doesn't taste bad, first of all, it's not good for your pot because then it allows the pot to rust. But then Carrie Lee shows that it's making her teeth black. And so what she does to solve this is she takes horsetail, or scour rush is another name for it. It actually grows around here. There's probably some out in the field out here. But that stuff is full of silica, and she's drying it and rubbing it and getting that powder out of there, which has an abrasive quality to it. She uses that kind of as a toothbrush or toothpaste. Another good use for that is because of that abrasive quality of that stuff, you can actually make like a really fine grained primitive sandpaper with it. It actually works pretty good. So just a side note on the seasoning of cast iron, there's a lot of, I don't know, I would call them wives' tales about seasoning cast iron and different ways that you have to do it and this and that. And personally, I found that most of that stuff to be a bunch of BS. All you got to do to season cast iron is cook some bacon in it. And it's done. That's seasoned. With that said, I don't think Carrie Lee is going to find any bacon up there in Labrador. However, she was able to shoot a muskrat with her bow after she rigged up this kind of cool bow fishing rig with a spool of fly line that she had. She shot a muskrat, which muskrats are not very big. I mean, she could probably stretch that to 2 days, but really, I mean, you could eat that in 1 day, not without problem at all. But she can use any fat that's on that muskrat to re-season her pot if she wants to do that. All right, so we'll move on to Tom. In the last episode, episode 7, Tom slipped and fell and hurt his back. And he's continuing to have trouble in this episode with it, and it leads to him having to pull the plug on this thing. He's having trouble just doing the very basic necessities of life, just gathering firewood. And so he had a good quote in there. It was something along the lines of, it's a tough person that never gives up, but it's a fool to not realize when you've been beaten. I like that quote. And I think that just comes down, to the individual. Like if you feel like you just physically can't continue, it is time. It's time to pull the plug. But if you have any reserves left in you, it would be hard for me to do that. It would be hard for me to pull that plug if I felt like I could continue, because you never know what's going to happen. I mean, later on that day, 5 minutes later, something could happen if you never give up. And I'm not saying that Tom should have done that. He knows his body better than anybody. And so if he felt like he was there to that point where he just had nothing left to give, absolutely. Tap the button, get some medical attention so that you don't, whatever's going on, you don't aggravate it and end up with some kind of permanent damage. So I think for Tom, he made the right choice for himself. All right, we'll move on to Adam. So right off the bat, we see that Adam is making good use of the dock that he found. He's made some storm shutters to be able to block his windows off when the weather turns nasty, and it is going to turn nasty. So that's going to be a big help for him to just kind of shut out that cold and retain any kind of warmth that he's able to generate inside his shelter. And that's going to help him save calories, not only keeping himself warm, but then also having to not process as much firewood. And processing firewood is a big caloric expenditure. When you're fed and you have plenty of calories, you could go out, I mean, if you're in relatively good physical shape, you could go out with that saw and cut through an 8-inch lodgepole in no time. They work really good, they're sharp. But I remember towards the end of my season when I was processing firewood, I mean, it took forever, because you're working like this, about this pace. You make 3 or 4 pulls, and then you gotta take a break. I mean, it will absolutely drain you when you just don't have enough calories. So Adam also talks about being homesick, and he says, I miss my people. And I said basically the exact same thing. I felt like I didn't just need people, just like any people. That didn't matter to me at all. But I needed my people, my family, and that's what I missed. I didn't miss just having people around. I missed my family. So Adam mentions that that's the first time that he's really thought about tapping. So for me, I never considered tapping, and I don't think that Adam really considered tapping either. I think that's just the way he said it. I did, however, want to go home. I wanted to go home every single day. But the thing I kept in mind is that this whole thing, this couple of months that I'm going to be out there, this thing is temporary. I knew that Liz could handle everything at the house. I knew the boys would be fine. I knew that everything would be fine. And I knew that not long after this whole experience was over, that this whole thing would seem like the blink of an eye. And so that idea of impermanence, of this thing being temporary and just a short duration when looked at over the span of a lifetime, that was something that I kept going back to. And that's a big part of what kept me in there. He then goes on to talk about the importance of staying busy to keep your mind active and to keep your mind off of those things. Because if you're just idle, your mind can basically chew itself to pieces. And so to stay active, he goes exploring, and he finds a completely new stream or river, which is, that's amazing, because there could be a beaver colony over there. There could be black bears hanging out over there. There could be another fishing hole that he hasn't seen before. And he talks about it. He mentions the possibilities that brings. And for Adam, he's basically just opened up a whole nother site for himself that he didn't previously know about. And so it'll be very interesting to see how he explores that further and how he exploits the potential resources that's there. But for Adam, that is a major, major discovery. But I think overall, Adam is doing really well. He looks healthy. And going out on a little bit of a limb here, I think he may be the one to watch. So we'll go ahead and talk about Jessie now. Jessie has finished her shelter. Unfortunately, she gets some sort of sickness, and I don't know what it is. I don't know what's making people sick out there. Jessie mentions that she thinks that it may be acid reflux. I think that's just her not wanting to accept that it's something much worse. Could be acid reflux, I guess. Doesn't seem like it to me. I'm not a doctor, but I've never had acid reflux like that to cause those symptoms. But anyway, we're going to talk more about this towards the end of this little recap. I really like Jessie's attitude. I mean, she is dug in, and she just, you can see it. I mean, they end up medically tapping her due to complications with the sickness. But, you can see in her face that she doesn't want to go. I mean, she truly does not want to go. She's one of those people that made that commitment, I think, before ever even stepping foot out there in that place, that she just wasn't going to quit no matter what. So I respect that, absolutely, 100%. So moving on to Timogen, it looks like he's doing great with the small game. They've shown a lot of his success with the bow and arrow on small game, grouse, squirrels, etc. But just because they're showing him having a lot of success with small game doesn't mean that there's not other people out there doing just as well, if not better. You know, they make those editorial decisions to show us what they want us to see, to kind of guide that story arc that they like to create. So, you know, keep that in mind as you watch the series. All right, so last but definitely not least, Juan Pablo. We see that he sees some fish rising farther out in the river and decides to extend his dock, which gives him a little bit more casting room, and ends up catching a few fish because of it. Again, unfortunately, he seems like he's getting sick. He has no appetite, and that's not normal. So I don't know. I suspect in the next episode, we're going to see him getting sick as well. Hopefully it's something like what Adam was complaining of and he can get over it. I hope that that's not what takes him out, but we're going to have to wait till the next episode to see. There's definitely something going on for him to not want to eat those fish. And that brings us to the overarching thing that seems to be dominating this entire season, and that is sickness. You know, when I first saw the first episodes roll out, and I saw how well these guys were doing with the small game, I saw that there were beaver there. I mean, there's so much food resources in this area. I was like, damn, I wish that I had that where I was. And so it is just human nature to want to label things good or bad. You know, whenever we saw how much food resources these guys had, they're like, man, that's awesome. But you never really know if something is good or bad until enough time has elapsed to give you that perspective. Yeah, they have more food resources, but they're also getting sick. We had crap for food resources, but nobody got sick. So who knows? We like to think that success is built solely on grit and determination and skill. But so often, fate, chance, or whatever you want to call it, leads us down unexpected paths. I think the best thing that we can do is just accept what fate brings our way, to try to learn from those experiences and use them to make us stronger. There have been several folks who have gone out this season who, with just a very slight change in the roll of the dice, could have won this entire thing. And that's just the way things happen. We've got 3 episodes left. We are down to 4 people, 4 very strong, capable, and determined people. And so it's going to be very interesting to see what rolls out over these next episodes. We'll see you guys next Thursday with another video, and then Friday with a recap. We'll see y'all next time.